Labor's second budget to be handed down a week from today will unveil a modest increase to Jobseeker, but not everyone is going to benefit. The suggestion is the age at which people receive a high rate of Jobseeker may be lowered from 60 to 55. Under the current system, those 60 and over who have been on unemployment benefits for 9 months are eligible to an increase of $52 a fortnight on the base rate, or around $4 a day. For more on this, let's bring in independent Senator David Pocock. Senator Pocock, thanks for your time. If there was that move, is that better than nothing? I know you've been pushing for a across-the-board increase in Jobseeker. If the government does that, is that at least a step?
It's something, but there's pressures across the board. We know that particularly women over 55, it's the fastest growing cohort of homeless people in Australia. So clearly we need support there, but expert advice, economists, everyone's saying like this is the right thing to do for our country. It makes sense across the board to be lifting things like Jobseeker, youth allowance. We have people living in poverty, and that is not conducive to getting back in the workforce. Experts are saying this is actually stopping people from getting back into work.
Well, Jim Chalmers said today that you need to look at the whole package of cost of living relief that he's going to put to the Parliament and the Australian people next week. He says there is more to come in that space than is being speculated on. Mm-hmm. Do you take heart from that there is going to be more than what people are talking about right now?
I want to give them the benefit of the doubt, but all the advice they've been given from experts in the field, from the Business Council of Australia, from unions, from economists, is you have to raise the rate across the board. It is not enough to live on. And this needs to be part of a bigger conversation as Australians. Do we want a social security system? I think we should be really proud of the fact we've got one. We can make a decision to say, if you are on that, you can live above the poverty line. And I think that's the kind of community and country I would like to be part of, one that people have that dignity, are allowed to get back onto their feet and get back into work. And at the moment, it's so clear that being in chronic stress about your finances, not being able to afford, having to make decisions between food and medication is not conducive to getting back into the workforce, which is what we're hearing the focus is really on.
Do you accept, though, and we had a reminder, a very clear reminder today from the Reserve Bank, lifting rates again, that the government has got a very delicate balance to try and strike here, because yes, they want to put more dollars in people's pockets, the more vulnerable in our community, but there's that inflation question that needs to be grappled with, because as the RBA is trying to cool the economy, they don't need the government shoveling out cash.
Yeah. I mean, this is a real frustration for me when you're talking about giving a small increase to Australians living in poverty. That money is going straight to their local supermarket, the local pharmacy. It's very hard to say that is inflationary, yet the $250 billion of stage 3 tax cuts coming down the line, half of them going to people who earn over $180,000 a year isn't. We know that there's a whole bunch of things that are inflationary. Stage 3 tax cuts are inflationary. Immigration is inflationary. I don't accept that we shouldn't say that 1 in 6 children shouldn't be growing up in poverty, because that'll be inflationary. Like this is a big, tough decision that we need to get right.
But they do have to find a balance, don't they, in terms of, that's fine to make that case, but when there are more dollars, because all of those dollars are going to be spent, every single dollar that we're talking about for people that are in poverty and need it, they're going to spend it. So the government needs to find savings elsewhere in order to not, I mean, I'm not saying they can't do it without an inflationary impact. Of course they can, but they've got to take other measures, don't they, to provide that balance.
Yeah, and this is the really tough thing. And people across the country know how tough budgets are at the moment. People are making really tough decisions, and to have a Labor government that wants to balance the budget off the back of the most vulnerable Australians. As it stands, again, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt leading into the budget, but as it stands, Scott Morrison was more generous when it comes to increasing Jobseeker and youth allowance and other payments. In April 2021, he increased it by $50 a fortnight. We're not hearing that same sort of increase, and we know inflation, rising cost of living. This is about looking after people in our communities, in our country.
Is rent assistance a high priority for you as well, given that housing crisis the nation is facing off the back of it's not just the rate rises, but it's part of the story?
I mean, rents are pretty ridiculous. Somewhere like here in Canberra, you've got frontline workers, people working at Canberra Hospital, living in caravan parks because they can't afford anywhere to rent. And you look at the most recent rental affordability reports, there's almost no properties across the country for people on Jobseeker or youth allowance. So that needs to be part of it. But I think longer term, we're going to have a much franker, tougher discussion about housing in Australia.
If the government does, and again we go back to what the Treasurer said today, you need to look at the whole package. It sounds like it's not just Jobseeker, but the single parenting payment, rent assistance, likely from what we heard from the Treasurer, is certainly not ruling out. It sounds to me like he's going to move on that front as well. Do you need to see it in that totality as opposed to just saying simply, well, Jobseeker, that's too low, when those people are also getting supports via those other mechanisms?
Yeah, we'll wait and have a look at it. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me to come up with a very convoluted way of doing something where you could just raise the rate and across the board help people. But we'll wait and see what's in there. The thing that I'm hearing, and we've seen, I think it's 14 Labor MPs now break ranks and say this is something that's important. And I agree, this is important for our country, and there's an opportunity next week to put people first, to put Australians first.
I'm sure you've had constituents, people in the nation's capital also hurting with their mortgage stress, with rates up again today. What's the sort of feedback you're getting?
A lot of people, doing it tough, and I think we've got to recognise that, and there needs to be some sort of immediate relief. And I think we've heard the Treasurer talk a lot about that, but I think we've got to start looking at the longer term and medium term solutions to that. Things like electrification, which are cost saving for households, are anti-inflationary because you're locking in the price of energy, and are helping people deal with the cost of living by saving thousands of dollars every year, not relying on the government giving $200 relief on energy bills.
And finally, the increase in the tobacco tax. Do you welcome that? Often, a lot of people who are less well off are addicted to nicotine and tobacco, so that they're going to be hit with that as well.
Yeah, I'm not across all the details of what that looks like. Clearly, I think there's a huge cost in terms of health that we all pick up the tab on that. So I think that is a way to deal with that, but we've really got to be, I think, cognizant of the fact is that there are a lot of people, low-income earners, addicted to cigarettes, and we need to find programs. I've spoken to a number of them who are saying, I really want to get off this, I can't afford it.
Independent Senator David Pocock. We'll see you next week during the budget. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Kieran.